So welcome to the Node.js Build Working Group meeting for January 21st, 2020. We're going to follow some agenda items which I've added to the GitHub doc, which is linkable off the issue that was created in the repo. We didn't have an agenda, but there were some things to talk about, so we've added those in. I guess any announcements or anything that people want to share before we dive into those? Okay, if not, the first issue that we thought we should spend a little bit of time on was the OSX notarization. I guess there's kind of three bits to that. One is the infra that we need, which I think Ashley and Sam are working on, so maybe we can get a bit of an update on that. I think we need sort of the right certificates and stuff, so I think Rod, you've been working on that, and then we need somebody to actually implement the changes and whatever that we would need to actually do the notarization. Does that cover the different parts of what we need to worry about?
Yeah, on top of that, we probably should note about the Mac Stadium hassles that we currently have. I know a few of you are tracking that, but the history of that is we're stuck on older infrastructure in Mac Stadium, which stops us from using newer Mac OS images. So we're trying to get that changed, but because it's a sponsorship deal, it's a little bit sensitive. I have not been able to get a response from the head of marketing who we have previously dealt with there. So the next step is to just go through the normal support channels, cross our fingers that it gets passed on to the right person and that they feel positively inclined towards us. I suspect that it's cheap for them to throw old infra at us, and asking for new infra is probably a stretch, but still it's becoming impractical. Like the hardware we have there is aging as Apple moves on with newer versions of macOS.
I think the thought I had is we can potentially, like, they gave us 3 machines, which was pretty generous last time. I think if we kept a couple of the older ones and had one new one, we might be able to make that work, right?
Well, they've given us the what do you call it? The VMware vSphere stuff, which I thought was just over one machine, wasn't it? Over one.
I think there was actually like 3 physical machines, and we could create virtual machines across. Like we pick one of those 3. I guess what I'm thinking is, like, if we kept, say 2 of those, and then we got one new machine in a new, because I think it's like we need a new vSphere level, which maybe then requires the new hardware. If we got, as opposed to getting like a duplicate of what we had, just one new one with the new vSphere level, we could spin up the newer versions of OS X there and leave the older ones where they are.
Okay. I mean, I think a few of you, maybe Ash, Sam, Michael, I mean, I think you're actually more up to speed on what we have there and what we need. So if that's, I mean, I could ask for that if we could just partial upgrade, but it is vSphere that we need upgraded as well, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, it was definitely, that's my understanding. Sam may be correct me, but we need a new level of that, and then that needs a new hardware. So
honestly, I read the words and didn't understand them. I mean, I know that we can't make newer. Yeah, we need to upgrade something. It wasn't clear to me what. We just throw something out. I mean, you mentioned that they might not want to give us things for free. Maybe we could just buy machines. We don't need to move everything up to the latest OS X that supports Xcode 10. But if we had a few machines, that would be enough. Maybe the Linux Foundation can pony up, or I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars a month, or 50 or 60.
That's a whole nother discussion, though, I think, because I don't know. I think it gets to the slippery slope if we start paying one provider. What about all the other ones who are donating, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
I think,
mean, the ideal is sponsorship. Like, that's what we'll shoot for.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is the Mac situation does make us a bit desperate because we're so reliant on basically one donor plus
Agreed.
Nearform, which
Yep.
you know, the infrastructure at Nearform has been good, and we have people there that we know and trust and can rely on for a longer term. But they're not an infrastructure provider, and so we have had issues with availability. You know, it's the weekend and nobody's in the office, that kind of thing. So it's the kind of hardware it's not great to rely on too deeply. It's probably a step up from my garage, maybe, because they've got a better network. But people availability tends to be a little bit less on the awkward times. But yeah.
Yeah, so the main thing I just wanted to say on that request is we can maybe ask for, you know, less, keep some of the old and ask for just a little bit less on the new side, if that makes it easier.
Yeah, okay.
I think
I'll
there
do
was,
that.
yeah, go ahead.
I'll fire up I'm gonna log in and remind myself to get this started today. So I'll do a request through their support portal.
Okay, because it could be like if we can get one of the 3 upgraded new vSphere instance, if that's workable, I don't know, then that would be enough for us, I think.
Yeah.
The big issue is the fact that we have to upgrade the release machine. That's the one that needs to be on new OS X to do notarization.
Yeah.
Well, we have in the past. In fact, I think aren't we still splitting releases over 10 and 11, or did that stop with Node 8? Because
I think it's more just that for the newer releases we're going to need.
I guess even for old releases we want notarization too, so we're going to have to do this all around, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think we discussed though that you know, it might be viable to say if the Mac model is use the latest, we might just say that no, just the latest LTS you get notarization.
If we have no choice, I guess we could say that, but I think it'd be better to support a single release machine at a single OS and compiler level, and it can set the macOS deployment target back. I mean, it might take if it turns out to be really, really unapproachable, getting the notarization back onto 10 and 12, then so be it. But a lot of people are using 10 and 12 on Macs. I think they would not be happy.
I'm not saying we don't want to do it if we can and it's feasible. Yes, I'm just not sure. I think it's an option not to if there's a good reason not to.
Right. Yeah. If there is, unless there's the notarization should be I mean, I speak from not having run through the release process, but I can't see how it wouldn't just be like an extra add-on process to the end of our release. It shouldn't involve like going deep into the .zip stuff, or I don't know, Rod, can you see something about notarization making it unfeasible on 10, but okay on master?
No, just I think it'll just be, we're going to have to edit the make file and probably install some extra tooling on the release machines. But it'll be basically the same as long as we're running it on the OS X that can support it. And so that's all.
So I'm hoping Ashley's done some, I don't know if everybody saw this, but Ashley did some testing. It looks to us like we can build on the latest machines. So we can build 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever, all on the latest OS X machine with the latest Xcode 10. And those binaries test fine on older platforms. So I think it would be, so then we'd only have to maintain the notarization tools on a single machine. That would be handy.
So I did start playing with it, start looking at how to integrate it, but I got caught up in the whole certificate thing, and that's why I'm currently going down the certificate rabbit hole, because we need even to just set up a test environment on my own machine, I needed the certificates. I couldn't get them, so, and then yeah. For some reason, I can't remember what it is. I think it's just the way that Apple does it. You know, the certificates themselves have to be password protected, and then you've got to import them into your keychain. It's just so messy and awkward. And I obviously didn't spend quality time either documenting it or storing the right things in our secrets repo, because this is going right back. This is one of the first things I did when we migrated away from Joyent, because the old packages were signed by Joyent, and so we thought, well, let's sign with this new org that we've created, and so that was one of the first things I did. And we just didn't have the whole rigor around secrets, and so it's poorly documented, poorly set up, and I can't put it back together with what we have. So we need this new Apple membership to get new certificates, and I think the Apple membership is also used for notarization anyway, so we're going to have to keep that active. But I think once I've got an environment on my machine that I can run, then I should be able to come up with a proposal for changing the makefile and putting tooling on the machine. I think I'll go with that one that what's his name posted? Hashimoto posted. That looks pretty well maintained, and it's nice to be able to use somebody else's tool.
In terms of the certs and everything, like and the membership, I know you're mentioning that's like 2FA. Is it like an org thing where we can have multiple people who have the 2FA, or is it just going to be tied to one?
It's so frustrating, it's so infuriating. It's got to be tied to a physical Apple machine or a phone or an iPad. So I think what we do, they do have a team set up, which is what we should be leaning on. So we set this account up, we use it as the account, and then like the main account for renewing, but then we delegate the team with team members. So those that should be able to access all the certificates and do all that sort of stuff, their Apple IDs go into the team. And you have, I can't remember, and it's probably changed since last I had access to it, but there's levels of access you can give people. But if we just give, some core people who are doing this stuff membership to the team, then they have to set up their own 2FA through their own devices to get in.
And they have to be Apple devices.
Well, here's the catch. I don't know whether I think so there's 2 levels 2FA. Well, there's 3 levels. There's no 2FA, then there's 2-factor verification, which is just like a phone number or something. I think it's just the SMS. And then there's 2-factor authentication, which is through an Apple device. I think we need that higher level to renew the org or to renew the membership. I don't know if we need that high level just to be member of the team. So we'll find out. I mean, this is so poorly documented, and you can't see anything until you have the membership. This is just typical Apple UI. Okay. But we'll find out today, because I've got a meeting with Brian in an hour and a half to get the renewal done. Hopefully that'll go through without any pain, and we'll have access, and I can delegate some. But
it's actually like what I'm poking at is like for GitHub 2FA, NPM 2FA. You can do that on your Android device. You could do it on any device. You can do it on
That's right.
There's
Apple is special.
So, but they're special. Okay, so that's why I was just confirming. It sounded to me like, my little program that I used to do it isn't going to work, right?
No, it's like Lightning versus USB-C. Apple has to be special. They do it their own way. They don't participate in the 2FA standards that the rest of us use.
Right. So it actually has to be a physical Apple device to make it work.
For the higher level one. But there's 2-step verification, which is with a SMS to your mobile phone, which may be enough for just participating in a team.
That's actually something we could set up. Well, I don't know if we want to get into all that work, but like we could have something which was an SMS forwarder, so that we could say here's our phone number that we want those SMS messages to go to. If it just then you get an authentication through that, and then the forwarder could say, okay, we're going to actually send it off to these other emails or these other channels actually even. I don't know. Maybe I'm just that's probably over engineering.
Yeah, I think for now let's just get this thing renewed, and then poke at what we can do with it. But it's certainly pretty frustrating. Because the thing is, like right now, because it's associated with an individual, that individual then has to receive the emails and be responsible for renewing it. And that's not great. Like if it depends on me to be reminded to renew and then take action to renew it, I'm not sure that's sustainable. It needs to go to a team ideally.
Right, because what happens if you're on holiday for a month or something, right?
No.
Like we want any one of a few people to be able to do it.
Yep. So my thinking was, well, it's associated with our Vagg at iojs.org, which I don't use for anything. Like it's not like like we could redirect that to build on our end. But what I thought we'd try was when we get this all set up, we do have a build at iojs account. If we delete or rename the email address on that one to something else, and then try and rename this other one, the email address to build at iojs.org, then at least we're in a better position for all getting notifications. Hey, your renewal is up for.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That sounds like a good idea. Okay. So it sounds like, I guess the only other thing we didn't talk about was like we are working on OS X instances at Nearform, because that's another, if we don't have the Mac Stadium one set up, that's the other place we may have new enough versions to do the notarization.
Yeah, I started this back up this week. The issue is the network company decided to change the subnet mask on the network they gave us and didn't tell Nearform, and now they've broken it. So I need to chase up with the IT guy at Nearform, but he was going to give me an ETA on their fix before I can start it again.
At that point, what do we think is left? Is it running Ansible or more?
Yeah, so I was going to set up one machine, make sure I can connect to it from the outside, run Ansible, all that stuff, make sure build all that jazz passes, and then I can create the other. We have space for 3 more VMs after that. I was just going to make them all 1015 for now, just leave them as they are.
Nice.
Ansible them, and then I can start adding them to CI, and we can just start running tests on them.
Okay, and then that's the right level that we need to do this notarization and everything.
Yeah, it's latest level. It's a bit overkill, but I think we should be trying to use latest where we can to avoid being stuck in the situation where we're running OSs that are about 6 years out of date at this point.
Yeah, it comes down to what we want to. It's like with all our operating systems. How old do we want to allow people to? How old do we want to provide guarantees for? If you're running 10.13, are we guaranteeing you can run Node whatever version 12? And if we are making that guarantee, then should we be verifying it? Now, we have to weigh that against the difficulty of running this Mac infrastructure, plus also the historical track record of Macs, which is that we haven't had that many incompatibilities across versions. So I'm inclined to not be as strict as we are on Linux, because with Linux you always get compatibility issues between distro versions. So if we need the room to be more lax on our versioning, I'm sort of okay with that, as long as we're comfortable saying to people when they show up with bugs, oh, we don't test on that. But I don't know. That's just they're the factors we have to weigh.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other factor to kind of weigh in is like Linux is used in production, right? So it's harder for people to upgrade. Mac almost seems to force you to. So I don't know, you have to work harder, I think, to have an older version of OS X running. So that's kind of factors into the equation too. But okay, it sounds like for now, generally we're agreed on like these new ones all being 15 would be fine. And, it doesn't mean we'd stop testing on anything else, because we still have the lower level ones, the testing that's running now anyway.
So I don't know if it makes a difference, but Apple are getting back into the rack-mounted business. They released a rack-mounted Mac Pro this last month. I don't know if that signals anything, but maybe they're trying to get back into the server market. It's just something to keep an eye on.
Sure. Yeah, be worth keeping in mind. Okay, so it sounds like we've got stuff going on. I don't know when the deadline was for when things were going to sort of be ratcheted up. I'm not sure we're going to make that deadline, but it sounds like we've got what we can going on this front.
Yeah. I think we missed the deadline, or was it was this week or something?
Didn't they extend it to the start of February or something? It was supposed to be the 1st of January, and then they keep moving it.
Okay.
Okay, well, the longer they move it out, probably the better for us. I mean, I guess in that sense, people can still install like the unzip version, right?
They can still build from source at least as well.
Sure, but I mean, even on the download site, there's a binary you could unzip and run. It's just a matter of, you don't get the nice, installer.
Not sure if they're going to be able to, once they tighten it down, that won't run anymore.
No, I think this is just installers. Like that, I think there are plans. There might be plans to tighten it down, but for now, notarization is just for installers because they can't. Because otherwise, Homebrew. We had this discussion before, but Homebrew wouldn't work if they did it for all executables. So you can unpack a tarball without any warnings at all for now. But in the ultimate convergence of Mac OS and iOS, I'm sure that things will get difficult.
Okay. Anything else more to talk about on that topic? We move over to tracking Jenkins changes then. I think, Richard, you put that on the list?
Yeah, I think I did. Trying to remember. I think it spun out of a discussion from another PR, didn't it? About how do we keep track of
how do we keep a revision history of configuration changes? And I think Rod was pointing out, I think that pipelines can do that for you, but we don't use pipelines that way, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, we don't.
Go ahead.
We did have some pipelines for running the linter jobs, which I think we don't use anymore because we switched to Travis. But when we were using those pipelines, we were not storing the pipelines as a live file in source control. So there was a version of the pipeline in source control, but it was just sort of manually copied over, but not sort of actually deployed in the job, which meant that the edits were still in the job, but would have to be manually copied back to source control. Whereas the Jenkins official way of tracking changes would be to commit that file into source control and then actually, check it out. And then all the changes would be under normal source control management. There were some plugins before for trying to back up like the XMLs and things, but they don't appear to have been updated in like 3 years.
Now you had
go ahead.
Sorry, I thought, Richard, you had a theory or you'd figured out why our change tracking in Jenkins was so balked? Because right now when you go in there, it's...
Yeah, it sounded like the plugin only worked through the log notifications. So the way it worked is when Jenkins did things, it has an internal sort of event emitter type thing where it fired off logs saying, for example, someone's changed this job configuration, and then the job configuration plugin would notice that and log it. But it wouldn't spot any changes to configuration that happened outside of the Jenkins UI. So for example, if we ever restored a backup or directly edited the XML, apparently that wouldn't be reflected in the plugin history. And I don't know if that 100% explains why it's got itself into such a bad state. But it sort of works for some jobs, and then some jobs you look at the history and it just looks completely wrong. It's wrong more like it sort of just hasn't spotted changes, or the first sort of thing is from a long time ago, and then nothing up until someone then makes the next change. But it's, yeah, I mean, it was just a sort of visual eyeballing down through the sort of issues on their bug tracker.
The way you got at that too was based on the job history, was it? No. I'm trying to remember where, like, I could, you know, there used to be a UI where you could see here's the different edits that took place.
Yeah, that's the job history configuration plugin.
Right.
So if you actually look at it now, for some jobs it's okay. I think those are the jobs we've been editing recently, but for other jobs, when you look at the history, it's missing changes that we know we've made. And when you look at sort of the first thing in the history, it's from quite a way back, and doesn't reflect the current state of the job. So it's like it's not properly tracking the history that the current jobs are at.
So even if you think if we went in and made a change today, it wouldn't show that in the history.
That's what the bug suggested.
Okay. I mean, I think on the pipelines one, the other thing I'd add is the reason I don't think we adopted more of them is that the UI was far less obvious direct in terms of seeing the results and the roll-ups and stuff.
Yeah, that's correct. The UI is more or less completely different.
Have we had recent problems where there were changes made, but we can't track them back, or like, is it?
Yeah. Yes,
we've had real problems. Is that? I'm just wondering where it's coming up again.
Yeah, we've had a lot of problems with this, with just not being able to either see or trust the job history, and I think just things like, okay, why is this setting here? Who did this?
Right.
Would be really nice.
Yeah.
Because I've complained about a few times recently about what on earth, why is this set to this number? Who did that and what's the reasoning? Because if I change it, am I going to break something? I have no idea.
Right.
So it'd be nice to be able to say, okay, yeah, see who made the change and then, yeah, go and question them. Pipelines would be nice. It's just that I don't see them being used in any practical way that's usable by our consumers, the collaborators. And we've also got a lot of work to do to convert to pipelines as well, if we really wanted to.
Yeah. Does the XML have anything sensitive in it?
I don't know. I don't think so, because we put our secrets are all in the Jenkins security, global security.
Right.
And we just refer to them. And I was trying to think that through. What's in there that could be sensitive? And I can't think of anything in particular. It'd just be like the way we do things might be sensitive in some instances, but I doubt it. But my proposal was to do this just with a cron job, like every 5 minutes, copy all the config files, and if they've changed, commit to a Git repo and then push to GitHub.
Yep.
And if we started doing that with a private repo, then at least we could audit it together and then say, okay, can this be made public?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I was just wondering. I'd seen that and it was like, I wonder if there's any reason why it needs to be a private repo. But that sounds useful. I guess the only thing that doesn't get us is like, well, who made that change and why, right?
Yeah. Well, as I said in that thread, there is a little bit of metadata in there that gives you the name of the person that last edited the file. So
okay.
Yeah, it's just but it's there. It's like their GitHub name, not their username, or whatever Jenkins has cached for their name.
And when you say last edited the file, are there separate files for every job, or is it one big XML?
Yeah, for every job there's a config.xml.
Okay.
So if I look at, I'm in there now. Test, node test. Commit Linux, let's go that one. Config.xml, and then there's a meta, and I can see that last saved description by me. There you go. That was saved by me.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, this is XML as well, so it's really unfriendly to just parse. But that was what we had with our job change history plugin as well. So we get to use GitHub diffs instead of Jenkins diffs.
Right, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And it would also mean like if we want to restore, you've got an easy way of doing that. So.
Yeah. Yes. No, not super easy, but we have what we need if we needed to restore.
Any more? Just like that seems like a good proposal. Unless anybody else has other ideas or.
What exactly is the proposal? Somehow there's going to be tooling to sync the XML into a Git repo, or?
My proposal right now is to set up a cron job to run every 5 minutes on. We could do them both. We should do it on both Jenkins machines. To copy the config.xmls into a Git repo directory, and then if there's any changes, to commit them and push them up to GitHub, a remote GitHub repo. And to start with, we'll start with a private repo.
In terms of figuring out if there's any changes, isn't Git smart enough to know that if we just copy it over and they're identical and you say push, it'll just push nothing?
Yeah. Well, you got to do the commit first, but yeah, that's what I thought. So to do an actual copy every 5 minutes, and then let Git tell us whether it needs to be committed or not.
That sounds reasonable and helpful. And it was over in build private or whatever. We could
well, so I'll need one of you two to make a private repo then that we can start with. So maybe if you could do that now.
That's in.
Maybe we'll probably need two because we have to do the release machine too.
So this is in Node.js private.
Up to you.
Or where do we have a build private too?
So I don't think it's super sensitive. I don't even think the release one is super sensitive. So I don't think we need to hide it away, you know. Like, and if we're going to make this public, do we want to make it on the Node.js org?
Yeah. Okay.
It can always be copied later, but I haven't seen anything in the XML that looks super sensitive either, or in any of the shell scripts. But again, that doesn't mean there isn't some corner missed.
Yeah.
So I mean, we already have a Node.js private/build private repo, which I think you should have access to.
Well,
yeah, but it'll need to be a dedicated repo so that this thing can push and doesn't have to synchronize. So it's got the
I would
and one per Jenkins. Sorry, Sam.
Right.
Michael, I would suggest Node.js because if it's a Node.js private, we need to manage two teams that all have the build working group members, which is painful. Whereas if it's a Node, we can use the existing GitHub teams and give them access. So then, you know, the less team
private repos in our regular Node.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Do we already have any that are private or?
Yeah, secrets, I think, isn't it? Or is
I
think that was moved to private.
Yeah, I don't think we have any private ones in the main Node.js org. I think we have a separate org for private.
Yeah, exactly. Repos. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But we should have the ability to, because we were given a special membership.
I'm thinking moderation private, or at least it's private to the members of.
Oh, you're right. I'm completely mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's and everybody is allowed unlimited free private repos now on GitHub. They ponied up to the GitLab thing. So anyhow.
Okay, so I think we'll need there's a process for requesting new repos. We'll have to open the issue in the admin repo to say, hey, we want to create these two repos. So I think as opposed to just creating it, we should do that. But otherwise, it does sound like so we can make it a private repo to start. And I think we'd want to say like we're not really worried about it being private because we moved the private repos to the node private because the other one we wanted to give broader access to, right? Like, so if we, I guess what I'm saying is if we actually care about who can see into it, be like, if we don't want regular node collaborators or organization members to see it, it possibly belongs in the private one.
So I think we should aim to make it fully public.
Okay.
So if that's the aim, then maybe we start off with that assumption. Then if in the process of looking at this stuff, we find things that, hey, maybe we should keep that private, then we can adjust the strategy. But I think our default should be to make it completely public, because that, I mean, then that gives everybody who's looking at what we're doing the ability to contribute in, at least by critique.
Yep. Okay, so we could have two new repos, Jenkins config test and Jenkins config release. Does that sound like reasonable names?
Yep.
And okay, so we'll just open an issue in the admin. I think it's like we have to wait 2 days for anybody to object, but otherwise then we'll create them.
Okay, I'm working on the bash script even now, because this seems like an interesting challenge.
Okay, and I will open the, I can open the admin issue asking for those and provide a bit of a description. Anything else? Repos, I'm just gonna put the names in here. Jenkins config.
I just had one thought from Rod's comment about the many hands on Jenkins. Is it not worth putting in something in the calendar that's like in the Node calendar where they review who has calendar access? Doing something similar for like Build and Jenkins access. So like once a year we check, is this person still an active member of Build? Do they still want to be a member of Build, or should they have their access revoked because they're no longer part of the project?
Yes. I think we've talked about being much more rigorous in the past, and I don't think we've ever done it. So we definitely should, especially for where you get access to things.
Yep.
It really is hard to cut off people who have given so much. Like, I can look through the list of names right now, people who are inactive, and know how much they've given to the, and how much debt we owe them in terms of their technical contribution. It's really hard to say, right, you're gone. And there's something special about the infra that makes it like that.
In a few cases, though, we've just sent emails saying, hey, do you still plan to be active? Or, you know, if yes, just say, you know, it's basically just send an email that says yes, right? It's a pretty low bar versus, you know, saying, okay, we're going to kick you out because you haven't been doing anything. It's like, you tell us, are you still active or not? And usually that catches people who really aren't going to have time to do it going forward.
And we list them in the Emeritus, I don't know, Emeritus or whatever, and thank them. I don't think that's a big deal. I mean, all their commits there were, you know, I think everybody who's involved would rather see that our access goes away. I mean, the worst case would be for someone to have their machine compromised unknowingly, and it was, you know, then springboarded into the node infrastructure. We'd all feel terrible about that. So yeah. I think it's not unreasonable. And the people that I've talked to have all been like, yeah, no problem. And of course, they can always ask again if somebody who's done a bunch of work on Build comes back and says, hey, I want to do this next month.
Yep.
Like, they would be, you know, back in the Build working group. So.
So I'm gonna pull my usual thing and say, Ashley, can you volunteer to trigger that? Like, open an issue.
Yeah, sure.
Membership review. I mean, I think what we did in one of the other ones was just like mention the whole team and basically say, hey, you know, please confirm that you're still planning to be active, want to be involved and be part of the team. And, you know, by and set a date, like, you know, people have 3 weeks or whatever to respond. If people respond saying take me off, they get taken off. If they say yes, I'm still active, they're still active. And if there's no response, then, you know, we might send them a follow-up ping or whatever, but otherwise they go to emeritus.
I'm sorry, I had to step away. This is about removing people from the build working group and associated things like Jenkins admin and stuff like that.
It's just doing a membership review.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. I was just I was just doing one. I was just reviewing the list a few minutes ago. So, but I don't think we have to wait 3 weeks, because like we can remove people, and then if they, you know, we just a few days is probably enough, because you can always add people back. It's not a big deal. But yes, let's please do that. There's a lot of people on there that should be cleaned up.
Yeah,
Plus
I was just relating our past, like trying to avoid it look like we're, you know, kicking people out. It's just the send it out something, and like, is it, you know, we've waited X amount of time. Does it really matter whether it's 2 days or 3 weeks?
Yeah.
To say, hey, you know, tell us if you're still involved. If you are, great. If you're not, then, you know, by this time, if we don't hear from you one way or the other, we'll
Sure.
go through and move people to emeritus.
Sure.
Like Rod was saying earlier, you know, we really value a lot of the contributions that people have made. So unless there's an urgency, I would err on the side of, you know, taking it a little bit slower.
Sure.
Okay, and Ashley has volunteered to start that process.
As a heads up, one of the problems with getting rid of people, no, I said that sounds not getting rid of people, but getting rid of people's access to these is it's my only, like Ashley or I can do, you know, so emails and contacting people, but you need access in order to get rid of access. So a bunch of the infrastructure and release is Rod and Michael. I think you're the only people in this call who have the authority to do that. So it'll be some work for you guys at the end.
Sure.
Well, there's not that many people that have access to that stuff, and
I don't know.
Johan. Sorry.
Oh, isn't there like 7 or 8 people with infrastructure access, and about the same with release access, and there could be less, maybe. Yeah. Anyhow, I don't want to over exaggerate.
I think there's that, but I mean, if there are people that are genuinely inactive that have access to some of that stuff, then definitely we need to deal with that. I'm much more concerned about that than I am about just general test access. So,
and it's probably
happy to make that.
Yeah, there's probably a case to be made for Sam to request access.
Oh, no, I wasn't trying to volunteer. Oh, no.
Bummer. Okay.
Well, but I'm always happy to have somebody else who can do these kind of things too. But
yeah, I'm not touching.
In the end, I think it's like, you know, hopefully it comes down to removing a few people from teams, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Okay. So
yeah, but it is always worth us reviewing.
Yep.
Whether we have enough people coverage for some of this higher level access, because that's when it's a problem. Like if something's breaking, and you know you have to wait 6 hours to get it fixed. Okay, maybe we don't have enough coverage. You know, so that's what we need to be reviewing.
This is a great segue into the next agenda item.
Update on build resource requests, because yeah, we only have 9 minutes left. So unfortunately, I don't have good news to report. We had the discussions at the board level. One of the larger companies had forwarded me a list of names. Unfortunately, when I followed up with all those people, the answer I got was, sorry, we don't have time. So just this week, I've followed back up with the person who forwarded me those names, and sort of have to renew that push to ask for people to help. We do have a board meeting this Friday, so I'll bring that up again. But my earlier hopefulness was unfortunately a little bit too hopeful.
Didn't Miles say that he had a couple of Google people that were keen to volunteer?
He's also mentioned that, but I haven't heard anything concrete yet. So again,
Right.
I'll bring that up at the board meeting where he'll be there, and we'll see if he's made any more progress.
I wonder if it would make sense for us to look at people who are active on releases. I'm not sure if there's like
the what?
The release, doing releases. It's just an idea. that maybe there should be more overlap between the build group and the release group. That might be misguided. I'm just trying anything at this point.
In terms of access, I think that's an interesting idea. In terms of our, the bus hits one person, I'm not sure that's going to fix that problem. Like what I had in mind when I was hopeful was that we should actually sit down and go through the different areas and say, okay, well, like we've got the website, we've got Jenkins, we've got, whatever all the different things are, and see with the new people and the existing people, we could put at least 2 names in each of those categories, and then do some, knowledge transfer. But I think
we can still do that exercise to figure out where the gaps, figure out exactly where the gaps are that need to be filled.
We can. I think it's the critical mass problem that, like, it totally makes sense, and we should, we should make space from the existing people to do that, given that we have more people to help out. If we don't, we're just asking more people to do work that may or may not be used, is my only concern.
Well, thank you, Ash and Richard, for showing up.
So, yeah. So anyway, that's my update. Other questions, or I'm going to keep pushing on that from the perspective of, getting more people who have, like, a day a week or some consistent amount of time to invest beyond the group here who have been.
So on the topic of contributions, I don't think he's here, but Johan did show back up again to get back involved, and I don't know where he's at the moment, but he did say that he was looking for places to inject himself, and things had really moved on since he was last heavily involved. But if we are finding places where he can help, like carve out a new area or give him something meaty to do, then Johan's extremely valuable. He's extremely skilled in infrastructure matters. So he's just a name that has said very recently that he wants to get more involved. It's just that he found difficulty finding where to inject himself again because things had evolved so much, in the team particularly.
Right. I mean, the kind of things I was thinking of, like, say, the website, I think you're the only one who has a good level of insight into what's going on there and how it works. And so it's the kind of thing.
Johan actually has a surprising amount of insight as well, because he helped set a lot of that up too. So.
Right. So if he's now active again, maybe we've got better coverage than we did for the last little while, right?
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, so go ahead.
No, sorry, just rambling.
I was thinking if we had new people, it would be an opportunity for some knowledge transfer, and then maybe as part of that, documenting whatever isn't documented as well as we'd like, right?
Yeah. It is. I personally find it hard to, because I've been so deeply involved in most of the things, to figure out exactly what needs more documentation and what doesn't.
Right, and that's why I was,
so,
what I had in mind as the model was you would do some knowledge transfer to one of these new people, they could then document it, right? Because coming from the perspective of somebody new, it's often much more obvious what you need to document.
Yeah.
because it's that whole thing of it also takes significant time to review and understand, and so it's kind of like if we've got an effort to get somebody up to speed to be the sort of the second person go-to person in a particular area, then all that effort fits in. Whereas it's like you just writing it down isn't really that much, isn't all that great if nobody else is going to read it, and then having everybody read it versus somebody who's going to have time to think about it isn't as good as somebody who's like, yeah, okay, I'm joining the build working group, I've got time, one of the things I'm going to be the expert on is the website, right, and how it runs and all that kind of stuff. I think it would also fit in, we then want to do, again, like you were talking about before, some of the, like, how do we tease apart what levels of access you need? Because we'd have to figure out, like, what do you need to do each of these things as well.
Yeah, so that, and this is where I think of Johan, which is we need to re-architect our website to do that work, because that's really the hinge point where all access is focused on the one thing. And if we can tease that apart into a new and re-architect it, so and he's had some ideas about that actually, right, using some of the, like, we've got GCP credits, for example.
Yep.
So that would be ideal, but it does require somebody with the passion, time, and expertise to do a lot of the work.
Yeah. That's where, yeah, I think that would be a natural one if we had somebody who was like, we were, our ask was basically like people who have a solid amount of time to be able to invest in these different areas.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, okay. We're pretty much at time. I'm gonna, I'll keep pushing on that, see if we can make any more progress or make some progress. I don't think it's, as you said, Miles has said that he thinks he has some leads on people, and I'm hoping when we go back and say, hey, this first batch didn't work out, we'll get some more suggestions. So we'll keep pushing on that.
Sure.
The last thing we had was Node 14 build info requirements. I think we're out of time for this week. So maybe it's better to wait till the next time. Richard, would it make sense? Could you open an issue to start the discussion on that, so that and tag it for next time's agenda?
Yep, sure, we'll do.
That way we'll get some discussion going, and it'll pop up on the agenda for the next time.
Okay.
Okay, anything else people want to talk about before we call it for today? No? Okay, thanks. Talk to everybody later.
Bye.
Bye.